Hello there, my name is Kamil and I will be your tour guide through the Budapest Gambit world. So, the Budapest Gambit is the opening that arises after d4, knight f6, c4, and now black plays e5. If I would have to call a second move for black in this position that is the most aggressive and maybe let's call it a little bit unsound, then I would definitely go for e5 here. So what is characteristic here is that black is of course sacrificing a pawn, but there is going to be only one single variation possible for white, where white is going to be able to keep that pawn, but black is going to have some positional compensation for sure. So in like 90% plus of variations, we are going to get this pawn back. And by far the most popular and the most critical move is d takes e5. And if you are going to face a player rated, I would say above 2000, you can like be 100% sure that he's going to just take on e5. But the lower the rating of your opposition is going to be, the bigger the chance that they are not going to take on e5. So there are some alternatives. And I just want to briefly mention how this course is constructed. So usually when I create my courses, I try to go for the main lines first. But here I did it on purpose to start from sidelines, because those sidelines are very often characterized by some plans that are going to be recurring through the whole course. So by learning those sidelines first, we are going to learn all of the necessary plans, and then we are going to be able to implement those plans in the main lines. So there are 10 theoretical chapters in this course. The first two chapters are devoted to not d takes e5. So we are going to start analyzing this course by taking a look at the quick starter guide. For those of you who are not familiar with this concept, I took approximately 10% of the most popular and the most challenging lines that white might play, and I packed them up into one chapter where we are going to analyze those critical options for white. So in this chapter, I'm going to present you some basic ideas, some main strategic, positional, and tactical themes, and as well as some of the main variations. My guess is always that whenever you learn this quick starter, which contains approximately 10% of all variations, you are going to be ready in like 30 to 50% of your games. Because I think that those 10% of variations are going to be played in approximately from 1/3 to 50% of your games. So we are going to start analyzing this move e3. So basically, if white is not going to capture, he's going to play d5, and this is what the third chapter of this course and the second theoretical chapter of this course is going to be devoted to. But the first chapter is devoted to knight f3, knight c3, g3, a3, e3, etc. You know, if white is not going to play something which is main line-ish, or white is not going to play something like d5, usually he's going to go for e3. So this is like the most solid option. White voluntarily decides to completely abandon fighting for the advantage, and he just wants to get his life peaceful, calm, and try to be solid. But this is not a good option, because we can immediately clarify the situation in the center by taking on d4, e takes d4, and now a very important move, bishop b4 check. And here white has three sensible continuations, but all of them has some pros and cons, but I would say that mostly cons. Because, for example, if white plays knight c3 here, we can very quickly castle and continue with d5, rook e8, and put some pressure on white's center. If white plays knight d2, then this knight is just completely misplaced. And if white plays bishop d2, this is what most players play with white in this position. We are immediately going to create some chaos in white's position by continuing with queen e7 check. This is a very important move. One point is that if white plays bishop e2, we can castle, and after knight f3, we play rook e8, and white cannot castle kingside because then this bishop is going to be hanging. So that would be a big problem for white. That's why usually white plays queen e2, but even in this situation I think that black is going to get an upper hand, because after bishop takes d2 we force white to take with the knight, and now if white has a choice whether this knight is going to be on d2 or c3, white would always choose c3. So by forcing knight takes d2, we managed to deactivate this knight. This knight is not too active here on d2. We are going to continue in the most standard way, which is to go for d5. And imagine ever those two pawns disappearing from the board. This guy on d4 is going to be permanently weak. We are never afraid of endgames. If white takes on e7, we just retake, and we are going to pressurize those two pawns on d4 and c4. White might try to keep the tension in the position with knight g to f3, but I think it's a risky way of playing, because now with the queens on the board, white not only has to be worried about those two hanging pawns, but sometimes there are also going to be some dynamic problems in this position. For example, at this moment, black is preparing to play knight c6 or d takes c4, and the only sensible way for white to try to avoid this tension being in the position is to go for c5. But after black castles kingside, we are going to play rook e8, b6, and all of those white's pieces, maybe okay, the knight on f3 is okay, but the knight on d2, the bishop on f1, queen on e2, all of those pieces are misplaced. The king is still in the center, black is ahead in development, and black is just much better here. So as you can see, if we start from here, so white is playing some natural moves, right? So sorry, not here, but bishop d2, queen e7, queen e2, just natural moves, and all in all, in the end, it's black who is much better. So this is how very often in the Budapest Gambit, things can go downhill for white very quickly.